By the time of this video, UPCAT 2025 is in 2 to 3 days, depending on your schedule. So if you're watching this video, it's highly likely that you're stressed out, desperate, or just wanting to learn more. I've been there, but disclaimer, what worked for me may not work for you, so follow what you feel is already best suited for you. And for transparency, I was a DPWAS passer in UPLB, and I'm an incoming BS Agribusiness Management and Entrepreneurship freshman. This video focuses on the before, my UPCAT, and the tips that I have based on my experience. So, what do I mean by with 3 days? For context, my exam was on August 11, Sunday, 6:30 a.m., and I did not attend school on Thursday and Friday to do my last minute review, and I also had Saturday to spare. However, I did study a little bit throughout the weeks before the UPCAT, so keep that in mind. The very first things that I did was go on TikTok. Go on TikTok, Facebook, to learn about the previous experiences of the people that took the UPCAT before me. And I took down the relevant information that I knew I was gonna need. For example, how many subtests there are, how many items are gonna be in each subtest, the time allotment given to us to answer each subtest, how was um, the proctor, are you able to eat there, yada yada, all those little things that were said by the people that took the UPCAT before me. I kept in mind, and yeah. So, number two is I know a lot of people have said this before, but it's really important to know your strengths and weaknesses so that you know what you need to study for, what to prioritize. So, for reference, this is my USTET exam results. Cha-ding! And I already knew that I was more proficient in languages and in reading comprehension than in math and sciences. For context, I'm an ABM student, and we had to do a lot of reading, so I'm already used to that. And yeah, we haven't had a lot of sciences learned, and you know math topics that came up that isn't related to my strand, which is also part of the UPCAT. So I was in a big disadvantage. But contrary to what most people said, I did not focus on my weaknesses. So again, I was cramming for the UPCAT, right? I only had 3 days to truly lock in. So what I did was focused on my strengths because I knew that based on what people said, you know, tip one, know the details of the exam. They said, and I can also agree, that the reading comprehension part took the most time because the passages were very long and you had to understand it in like one read, or else you're gonna waste time because there's a lot of questions and very limited time. For reference, this is a bonus reference. In UPCAT 2019, language proficiency had 100 items, and they were given 55 minutes to answer it. Reading comprehension had 100 items and 1 hour and 15 minutes given. Mathematics had 60 items with 1 hour and 15 minutes to answer them, and science had 60 items with 50 minutes to answer them. So as you can see, language proficiency and reading comprehension, whopping 100 items each during the UPCAT 2019. So I already knew that I had to train myself, especially since all of the questions are multiple choice answers, which was my bread and butter, and hopefully still is. So I focused on my mock test, which brings me to my tip number 3. Find and study mock test based on the UPCAT, like my maroon blue book, or you might already have another book. It doesn't specifically have to be the maroon blue book, but this is what I had. So if you ask me what the best mock tests are and how do I determine if a mock test is good, I'm not gonna talk about the topics because we can't know. It's hard to really know what topics are gonna come out the most in the UPCAT. So I suggest that you look for mock tests that have a similar time allotment and number of items as the UPCAT itself, which I mentioned earlier, so that you can really get into the zone and practice your mindset and practice how you are able to answer in the exam itself. So yeah, you really have to get into that mindset so that you find out what's your behavior gonna be during the exam itself. Like, do you feel panicked? Are you calm? Or are you having a hard time reading long passages? And you can know, so that you can know what are things that you need to work on. Because this is where a lot of people get confused. They don't know what to do if they don't know the topic, if they don't know the answer. So if you get the wrong answer in UPCAT, it deducts your total score, right? But I think it's only like 0.25 deduction. So for me, I think it's worth to take a risk if, through the process of elimination, you're confident in your answer, even though you're not sure if it's the correct one. It's good to take a risk. But if you're really not sure, it's okay to leave it blank. Yeah. I did say that for my third tip, you need to find and study mock tests. How the hell do you study a mock test? I know it sounds confusing, but let me explain. So you need to analyze your mock test by reading the directions and the formatting of the questions, and keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. And, read the questions as well, because it's highly likely that similar questions will come up in there. And you need to keep in mind your behavior when those kind of questions come up. But the most important part that you really need to keep in mind is the directions, especially for language proficiency. Because in language proficiency, you guys are probably not going to see it, so I'm just going to show it to you in this part of the video. So the instruction says to select the words that has the closest or synonymous meaning to the italicized word, right? And then the next instruction is going to be like, select the words that have the opposite meaning to the italicized word and shade the appropriate circle. It's very easy to get things mixed up and be confused during the exam itself, because it's very hectic. You know that your future is dependent on your results of this exam, right? So to be calmer and to feel more self-assured in answering, you need to read the instructions and know in yourself that you understood them. So that's what I meant by studying mock test. Find out the question, what kind of questions, what type of instructions, come up the most in the mock test that you take, such as, sentence completion, error identification. A lot of those came up in the language proficiency part of UPCAT 2024. So keep that in mind. So another hard kicker is the reading comprehension. I mentioned earlier that in UPCAT 2019, reading comprehension and language proficiency had 100 items. That's why, even though I'm already more used to language proficiency and reading comprehension, I focused on those two subtests instead of spending my limited time on science and math, because I knew I was a lost cause in there. So what I did was just skim and scan topics that I knew is most likely gonna come up, and then kept them in mind. And I took mock tests for math and science as well, obviously, but I mainly focused on analyzing the mock test of language proficiency and reading comprehension, as those two mock tests are very, very, very instruction heavy. So you need to understand the directions that might come up beforehand. I already talked about language proficiency. Let me read about reading comprehension. So, a lot of long passages. You will encounter a lot of long passages. in reading comprehension. I will show this example in the side. Charan. So you really need to train yourself to read fast but accurately, which I luckily already trained myself to do because of, well, school. But if you're struggling with that, especially if you have poor vision like me, it really pays off well to practice reading fast but accurately. Trust me, this applies for all subtests, but it's very, very crucial to answer all of the questions in reading comprehension. A lot of people, said that they weren't able to answer all of the questions in reading comprehension because it's a lot. It's a lot of words and a lot of questions with very limited time. So it's understandable. But I already knew that I had to overcome that hurdle. I had to answer most of the questions because I already knew that I was cooked in the math and science portion, and this was one of the subtests where I can redeem myself in. So I really practiced reading fast and accurately. And as I said earlier, it helped me a lot in the other subtests as well. Especially this one. You might encounter long stories like the gift of Maggie. So hopefully you remember those. I don't remember encountering it last year, but you never know. You never know. So you just be prepared to read fast. But for reading comprehension, you really, really, really need to read the questions first so that you know what you're looking for. You shouldn't be focused on the text excerpts in the reading comprehension part. You need to skim and scan and just look what you need to look for because you have very, very limited time but a lot of words to read. So that is, so I already covered language proficiency and reading comprehension. So for maths and science, I do not recall needing to use a lot of formulas. In fact, I didn't remember a single formula. But what we did encounter, of course, was a lot of word problems, which is why, as I said earlier, you need to learn how to read fast and accurately, because math and science is full of word problems, and that's what you need to prepare for. And to also learn the most basics of formula, especially the ones that you learned in grade 10, like the arithmetic sequence, etc., etc. Tip 4, prepare a digital watch. Do not bring an analog watch. Trust me, you will waste time reading time in an analog watch because the jitters, the stress, the anxiety might make you read the time wrong. And knowing the time, knowing how many minutes you got left, is so very, very important. And taking the UPCAT. So for your peace of mind, bring a digital watch. No smartwatches, that's not allowed. You're gonna have to put it in the front. If you're worried about, bringing a bag, bringing your phone, don't be worried because you're just gonna put it in the front of the room anyways. So bring whatever the hell you want. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna leave that bag in the front of the room. But what you can bring leads me to tip number 5. Think and prepare the food and drinks you want to bring to the UPCAT. Let's be considerate. I read a Facebook post about someone bringing a yum burger to their test center, and do not do that because a yum burger has a very strong, delicious, but strong smell that can distract other examinees, including yourself. So let's be mindful. So, for reference, the foods that I brought with me to the test center was a sandwich, sliced apples, and grapes. Very, very, very recommended. Sandwiches. Make sure that there is no meat, no veggies, no nothing. Just a spread in those sandwiches. And make sure that spread doesn't drip down. Because, God forbid, you put a stain on your test book or in your answer sheet. We need to avoid that at all costs. So, what drinks should you bring to avoid such happenings happening? So you guys know Chucky or a milk box? I brought that. I brought 2 of them. Very worth it since it already has a straw and it's a box, very balanced. It just stands there very neatly on the table. So if I'm thirsty, this is what I do. Imagine this is the milk box, right? So I'm answering and I suddenly get thirsty. And oh, my milk box, it's standing very neatly near me, obviously, or under the table if your test center has a table that has a mini storage below it. That's where you can put your food. So yeah, put it back neatly and answer again. No opening a bottle, no nothing of that, because you really need to spend your time wisely. And what if, God forbid, you're so nervous and you're opening a bottle of water and oh my gosh, it spills on your test booklet or on your answer sheet. So embarrassing. And it's distracting. So bring foods that don't have a strong smell, won't stain, won't have any spillage, and isn't noisy to eat. Some biscuits, if you're planning to bring a biscuit, make sure that it isn't noisy to eat. Let's be mindful and let's have food that are easy to eat but yummy. So yeah, my recommendations are fruits, like bananas, like sliced apples, like grapes, but you can bring whatever you want. And make sure to bring it in a clear container to avoid any suspicions towards you. Tip number 6. Before the UPCAT, make sure you showered well, you look good, because when you look good, you feel good. And make sure, if your head is hurting, even just by a little bit, to drink medicine, like methadone. Because you never know, what if the teeny weeny little headache becomes bad, becomes worse during your exam. God forbid. So drink that medicine. And this is also connected to tip number 6, but for tip number 7, make sure to know what your test center's environment is like. So I took my test in UPLB, in one of the many buildings in there, and I already prepared for the possibility of the room being hot or cold. So I wore a thin t-shirt and I brought with me a jacket so that if ever it's cold there, I can just wear it, but if it's hot, it just stays on my waist. And yeah, make sure that you are familiar with the route to your test center beforehand, because you might waste a lot of time being confused with the directions on the day of your exam. And if you're late, you're late. So be prepared ahead of time for your peace of mind and for the sake of time. So yeah, those are my 7 tips that I think you should keep in mind before your UPCAT. And that's how I passed the UPCAT with 3 days. Good luck.